look at the big air. Oh, that's just running wide. Look how close they are. And away they go. The two Subarus get away fairly evenly. Kieran tries to go in wide. Oh, Tom's hit Kieran. But Josh goes back on the inside. Gary goes wide. Mike goes up the inside of Gary. Oh, there's a bit of a tap there. Oh, there's Craig has pushed Sam into the wall. Josh Hardy wins his second ever win and the second win of the day. Chris doing more rallycross in the BMW than actual touring car racing. And it's the first win for Mark Nicol in the Renault Megane. Joe's definitely going to get it. A fantastic win for Heafy on his debut event. His first ever win in the Nissan GTR. Unless Kieran can make a last minute dive. And he does. And Mark Nicol is 6th, which means he's the independent champion for season 2. Craig Kellett in the Nissan GTR is going to be a win for Craig. Craig Kellett is going to take the win in this race. Craig Kellett is your season 2 FWTC champion. Hello and welcome to the FWTC Online Touring Car Championship. My name is Tom and as always I'll be your commentator. You are currently looking at the class of Season 3 here at Monza at the official media day, which took place only a few days ago. So let's have a look at the official entry list. Let's see who's in, who's out, the new teams, the new independents and the new cars. Ellett Racing returned for a second season. Of course, Rob Pellet and Craig Kellett retained the Nissan GTR for the second season running. Rob Pellet is looking to improve on last season's results and help Craig retain the team's title, of course, as Craig Kellett wants to retain the overall driver's title. Ellett Racing returned for a third season running. Tom Foster and Kieran Thomas of course stick together but decide to field a pair of Ford Mustangs. The two have decided to keep with the white, red and blue livery. Tom was second in season 2, so is hoping to potentially take the win for the overall title, but of course Kieran and Tom together are aiming for the team's title. K&N Racing are a brand new team featuring Mike Kuipers and Mark Nicol fielding a pair of Nissan GTRs. Of course, Mark Nicol was our Season 2 Independence Champion and Mike Kuipers was very close to taking the title too, so the two decided to pair up and have formed quite a strong team to battle it out against the regulars. DC Motorsports is a newly formed team with Darren Parker and Harry Cook fielding a pair of BMW M4s. Darren Parker unfortunately had to split with Team Parker Racing after Sam Parker decided to sit season 3 out after making some real life commitments in racing. Harry Cook joins Darren as a brand new team and the BMW M4 sees its first team outing. HB Motorsports is the 5th and final team for season 3, featuring a pair of Hyundai Genesis for Joe Burrows and Stephen Heath. Of course, both Joe and Stephen started late into season 3 but showed real pace for both of them in the Subaru for Stephen and of course Joe in the Mazda. The two have paired up to make this brand new team and have run the Hyundai Genesis, which was only featured in season 1 from Rob Pellet. In the independents then, of course, Josh Hardy retains the Renault Megane for the third straight season. Josh Hardy, of course, lost the title to Mark Nicol at Brands Hatch in the final day in season 2, but is hoping to regain the title back in season 3. Gary Black returns into the independents for a third straight season in a brand new Renault Megane. Of course, Gary was in season 2 and struggled with his Lexus RCF all throughout the season, but showed some real pace later into the season and has decided to switch to the Renault Megane and has showed some promising pace in testing already. Chris Hensby decides to return for season 3 after a couple of shows in season 2 in a singular Subaru WRX. Chris really struggled in season 2 with his BMW M4 and has decided to switch to the Subaru WRX to see if he can get some decent results for season 3. The first of our newcomers then is Hewlett, who has decided to field a single Subaru WRX. Connor, who has come from the Wreckfest series, has decided to switch over to the Wreckfest touring cars to see if he can get some results early on into the season. Tom Wright is our second newcomer and our final contender for Season 3 in a Renault Megane. Tom had initially decided to field the Audi TT, which would have been the first time to see the Audi, but unfortunately had shown no pace whatsoever. So Tom decided to switch to the Renault Megane at the last hour, so has had no testing in the car whatsoever. Monza is the traditional home of the start of the season, and it's no different here for Season 3. The 3.6 mile circuit is 12 laps for the 3 races here. Of course, this is the third time that the guys have raced here, and we saw Mark Nicol take his first ever win here in Season 2. So let's have a look and find out how our grid looks for race 1. Here is your first ever grid for Season 3 then, here at Monza. A great pole position for Darren Parker in his brand new BMW M4. Next to him is the Ellett Racing Nissan GTR of Craig Kellett. On row 2, Stephen Heath in the brand new Hyundai Genesis for HB Motorsports, next to Mike Kuipers in his Nissan GTR for K&N Racing. Row 3 is the BMW M4 of Harry Cook for DC Motorsports, next to Mark Nicol for the second K&N Nissan GTR. Row 4, of course, is Gary Black in his Renault Megane, next to Tom Foster in the K-Tech Racing Ford Mustang. Row 5 is Rob Pellett in the Nissan GTR for Ellett Racing, next to Connor Hewlett in his Subaru WRX. Row 6, of course, is the second K-Tech Racing Ford Mustang of Kieran Thomas, next to Tom Wright in his Renault Megane, and at the back row of the grid is the second of the Hyundai Genesis of Joe Burrows for HB Motorsports and Josh Hardy in his Renault Megane after having some technical issues. Here we go then, it's the first race of the season. Everyone has been reset to 0, and the new tyre regulations mean soft tyres for everyone on this first race. And away they go. Darren unfortunately bogs down for the rear wheel drive, and that's allowed Craig to take the lead. So it's a good start for Craig, but it looks like he's going into the first quarter too quick, and he does. Fortunately, he makes a real meal of that. So on board with Darren. So the guys have managed to get all around the first few corners, and it looks like Darren's on the outside, Mike is on the inside for the second chicane, and that's Harry. Harry goes wide. I think someone else has got off as well. Harry comes back on. So yeah, it's all a bit untidy around the back here. Connor is at the back, but in actual fact no, it's Josh. So Josh is still on the grid. So Josh is going absolutely nowhere. So Josh unfortunately seems to have had some issues. So Josh's day goes from bad to worse, as the qualifying meant that he didn't actually get out of the pits whatsoever. So the 2 K&N cars at the front here in the lead, and that is Mark Nicol taking the lead away from Mike, but the 2 Nissan GTRs of K&N Racing already making a real big statement here for taking first and second. But that's Darren who's coming down the inside. So Darren goes into second and nearly goes into first here, and Darren's taken the lead. Oh, a bit of contact, but Darren gets away with it. How he gets away with it, I don't know. Back on board with Mike. This is unbelievable racing, and it's a push to Mark to get into the lead. That's some sneaky team tactics going on there. Craig is not too far behind, so Craig obviously looking very, very tasty, sitting behind here, waiting for one of the 3 there to make a mistake. Gary is down in 5th, so that's a fantastic start for Gary, much further up the grid than he obviously was being in the Lexus early on. in Season 2 into 6th is Stephen Heath in the Hyundai. Rob is in the 2nd of the Nissans for Ellett Racing in 7th. That is Kieran in 8th, and that's Tom and Harry having a tussle there. Tom Wright is further down, and that's Connor and of course Joe. So let's have a look and find out what happened in the first few corners with Josh's failure to get off the line, and of course Harry Cook as he spins out on that chicane. Let's watch Josh at the start of this race, and he's revving the engine, but he's going nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Look, so big problems for Josh, hence why he's stuck on the grid. Harry, as he makes the mistake into the second chicane, he just takes it way too quick. Look, and there's actually Connor who comes in with him, probably followed his racing line. On board with Harry, let's find out, did he touch the grass? No, he just goes way too fast into the corner. Let's go on board with Connor as we see Harry in the foreground there. It's actually Connor who catches the grass as well, and he just spins round to avoid Harry. So Mark Nichol is still leading this race. Of course, Mark took his first ever win here last season in his Renault Megane, and eventually went to take the Independence title. So Mark has been promoted to a team and joins Mike Kuipers to form K&N Racing in the Nissan GTR. Mike, of course, is stuck with the Nissan. He's used to it, so it's going to be a slight change for Mark, who's gone from rear-wheel drive to four-wheel drive. But the Nissan is a proven race winner and a title winner too. So Darren's still in 2nd, Craig is in 3rd now, Mike has dropped down to 4th. Let's go on board with Gary in his brand new Renault Megane. So far, so good. Some real clean racing. Further down, we've got the two K-Techs together now. And we go on board with Harry as the 2nd of the DC Motorsports BMWs here. It's been caught up with both Kieran and Tom and Rob in front, and let's look at Kieran already really trying to push past Rob. Rob is defending hard and defending well. Ellett Racing have gone for a slight colour change and more of the cyan looking blue colour with the addition of a major sponsorship with Snap-on, and that's, is that Kieran? Yeah, I think that's Kieran. Kieran is facing the wrong way nearly. I think he's managed to get himself away from the barrier there, but it looked like he just lost it on the gravel, so Kieran is pushed down to 12th now, so this is a bad start for Kieran. Joe in his Hyundai still getting to grips with it, and this for the lead, and not quite worked for Darren, but Mark has gone wide, and Darren actually it does work out, so because Mark went wide, Darren takes the lead. Let's go on board with Mike Kuipers as we watch the top 3 here. 3 teams and 3 very, very strong guys here, 4 of them now, as Mike joins in with Gary very, very close behind. So this is fantastic for Gary Black, waiting to see if he can take advantage of a mistake from one of these guys. On to lap 4 of 12. Mike has put the pressure on the back of Craig here. Craig is obviously not running away with it like he has previously, but still early days. And the BMW of Darren Parker already showing some real pace. And that is Stephen Heath, who has managed to catch up to the back of this pack. So is also looking to take advantage of some mishaps potentially, although saying that he goes slightly wide. Gary also nearly goes onto the gravel. Behind then we've got Rob Tom and Harry. And that's Tom potentially going up the inside of Rob. There's a bit of a touch there, and that's actually slowed Tom down. So Harry's on the back of Tom here. Further down, Connor is on the back of Tom. The two black and red new independent cars of Tom and Connor. Just getting used to being in the racing pack with everyone else. It's early days for them, a learning curve. So they will hopefully continue to get up with the pace. But not a bad start, of course. Kieran is looking to catch up, and this is Joe, who looks to be struggling with the high and die early in the days. So Mark and everyone else, and that's Heathy nearly going into the gravel there. So this is fantastic racing. So now this is going to look like we keep Heathy again in the gravel. We'll keep an eye on this battle. It's very, very close here for the top 6. So we've got Mark in the lead, Darren in second, Gary now in third in the podium position, Mike in fourth, Craig in fifth, and Stephen Heath in 6th. This is Craig on the back of Mike. Well, some slight rubbing there, but of course the rubbing is racing. Motto has stood with these guys for the 3 seasons now. And as they come down to the first chicane, it's going to be tight. Let's go up to the top 2. That's Mark going wide into the chicane. Can they all fit through? And they do. Look at that, fantastic racing. So they all come out nice and clear. We go down with Tom. And that's Tom who's gone out. And I think that looks like, yeah, that's Rob and Harry have gone wide. And Tom goes wide as well. So it's a bit messy there for those guys. So let's have a little look and find out what happened. It was slightly out of the camera view, but it looked like Rob and Harry had gone wide there. So let's have a little look. Let's go on board here with a chicane with Tom, Rob and Harry. So Tom has just taken the chicane too deep, and as he comes back on, there's just contact there between Rob and Harry. Pushes him onto the gravel. On board with Harry as we watch Rob ahead. Tom's just ahead of Rob there, look. And then let's see, there's Tom that just goes too deep into the chicane, and then yeah, there's the contact. Back onto the leading pack then. Mark is still leading, and he is holding on tight, really defending hard, defending well against Darren. But it is becoming tougher and tougher for Mark to keep that first, as Darren is looking really, really racy here. Absolutely on it. The pressure is there, and it's slight contact, but they get away with it again. Let's go on board with Gary then. As Gary runs slightly wide, Darren slightly wide, and that's allowed Craig to go back up into third now. So Craig up to third, Gary down to fourth, with Stephen behind him, and Mike has dropped down to sixth. But the positions are constantly changing here. Back down the straight to start on to lap 7. And look at this, nearly 4 wide into the first corner. Gary's taken a an opportunity to go down the inside. Gary's taken the lead of the race. Gary Black is in the lead, but he's gone too deep into the corner. He goes out wide. He's on the gravel. That's going to slow him down. Everyone else goes back up ahead. Mike is on the grass. So Mark Nicol is back in the lead of this race after losing it for just a few seconds after Gary goes ahead. My apologies, it was Darren who was leading, but Mark is back ahead now, ahead of Darren. Into the second chicane as they come out. And look at this, is so close. You can't predict who's going to win from here because it could be any one of these 6. And it's still only lap 7. Mark goes wide, he's on the gravel and he nearly takes out Craig as he comes back on. So the Nissan GTR of Ellett Racing is down to second, and Darren Parker in his BMW takes the lead again. Craig down to third. Stephen Heath up to fourth now as Gary's dropped down. On board with Mike as he stays at the back of this pack. So Tom up to 7th on his own. Rob now in 8th. Connor's been promoted up to 9th after the slight tussle that went on earlier on in the chicane. K-Man, Kieran Thomas 10th. Tom Wright is 11th, just ahead of Joe, who seems to have caught up to Tom. So Joe looking like he's just getting his feet down now with that high and diet. And Harry's down to the back after going off. It's a shame for Harry. Darren's still leading then after they go through the chicane. Mark down to third now. So Gary's going wide with Mike. They go into the second chicane for the 8th time. Over those bumps. There's Tom on his own. On board with Mike. And that's Mark slightly touching that gravel again. Darren's just gapped it a little bit. And we're back to square one where we were with season 2 essentially here, as Darren and Craig are leading this race. So as much as the rest of the other guys are there, and they have done some hard work to get themselves up there, it's back to Darren and Craig for the fight. But from what we've seen so far, I don't think it's going to be Darren and Craig throughout the whole season, as everyone else is looking very, very competitive. There's a bit of a push there by Mark. Into the chicane. Oh, there's contact. But I think they've got away with it. Stephen, unfortunately, Stephen, yeah. I thought he might have got away with it, but that was Mike and Stephen Heath who made a bit of contact there, so that's actually slowed him right down. So I think Heathy has really lost control there, and I think Mike has slowed down. So we'll have a look, find out what happened there. There was just the slightest of touches, and it's unsettled both the cars. Yeah, look, there's Mike. Let's see if he's back ahead. So that's promoted Tom up to 5th now. So Tom could catch up the leading cars. So let's have a look and find out what happened here. Yeah, there's just a contact there with Mike, and it's just pushed Heathy way into the chicane. It's actually reset him, unfortunately. On board with Mike, and he's got Heathy just in front of him. It already looks like he's been hit quite a few times. There's the contact. It's just a shame that Mike unfortunately made the mistake, and so he did slow down, force Stephen to get back ahead. Further on down, Connor up to 9th still on his own, but he's got Kieran hot on his tail, as well as Joe, who seems to have caught on the back of Kieran here and continued on with him. There's Harry, and that's Tom, who looks like he's made a mistake somewhere. Something's happened to Tom, unfortunately, so Tom's down to last. In the lead then, Darren and Craig. So Craig looking very, very close to Darren, a lot closer than what he was beforehand. And the slipstream here is very, very strong. So we're just coming away to the back end of lap 9 and going on to lap 10. So we're coming on to the last 3 laps of the first race. And there's slight contact, a slight push wide by Craig. Darren's on the outside of the corner on the slight slippery curb there. On board with Craig. Does Darren make a move on the inside? You could just see his car. There it is, the bright green Monster Energy sponsored BMW takes the lead back. And there's also a fight here for 3rd and 4th between Mark Nicol and Gary Black. Oh! And there's a slight bit of contact there. That's a shame. So Mark gets the back end of his car, slightly nudging Gary into the gravel, but Gary keeps himself together and carries on in 4th. Tom could potentially catch up with Gary now here. Stephen's dropped down to 6th. Mike's still in 7th, but they could catch up with Tom. And Tom has been on his own for half of this race, so hasn't really had to deal with much other than the initial racing with Harry and Rob. So he's now got 2 very quick cars hot on his tail, and can he keep the pressure? Oh, that was a slightly strange corner there from Tom, and it looks like he's going to have Stephen now. He's going to take advantage and go past, and it looks like, whoa, there's contact there. But Tom sticks with it, and he's kept the lead on the gravel. That slowed him down. There's contact there. Tom is just about hanging on here. Rob is close by, if you can see the back there. So Gary's caught up slightly with Mark again, so he could catch his slipstream to push for that 3rd. And the 2 leaders here, Craig and Darren, would you believe it, go on to lap 11, the final 2 laps here. On board with Craig. Look at them, they're both accelerating at the same time. Of course the Nissan naturally will be just a little bit quicker around the corners, but I think the BMW will pull away better, but each setup is different. Look at the Nissan there, is really putting the pressure on Darren now. He's gone on the outside. Is it going to make it stick? Potentially. That's fantastic racing. Oh, there's Gary and Mark. So Gary and Mark flinging those barriers at each other, and Mark has gone slightly wide, so has Craig. So this race is definitely not over until the fat lady sings, they say, as we're still on lap 11 going on to the final lap after this final chicane and the final corner. So halfway round lap 11, and this race is definitely not over, as the positions are constantly changing. We've got Mike and Stephen and Tom and Rob now all in this bunch here, fighting for 6th, 7th, 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, sorry. So unbelievable. On the back end of Rob here, we go on board just behind Tom. This is unbelievable racing. Tom's on the inside. There's a bit of a push from Stephen. Stephen pushes Mike wide. So Mike gets pushed out. Rob takes up behind Tom still. Up ahead, Gary and Mark going into the chicane together, and that's Gary's a slight push. So Mark's been pushed down to 4th. Craig is still in 2nd. It's the chicane, 4 cars go. Oh, there's contact there, and there's more contact. So that's Rob Pellett's been pushed off, and he's gone behind Kieran, who's managed to catch up then. So we can have another little look at that, find out what happened there. On board with Rob here then, as the two go round the chicane. Yeah, he just catches the back end there of Heathy, and then unfortunately there's contact to the back of Rob, pushes him off into the gravel. On board with Mike, as we can see Rob and Stephen go into the chicane here. You'll see the contact there. Oh, it's a bit of Tom and a bit of Mike, unfortunately, that pushed Rob into the gravel. So the final few corners then, as we're on to the final lap. On board with Craig. Darren has been leading this race for most of the second half, and it looks like he could take it, but he's having to defend hard, really hard here at the Season 2 champ, Craig Kellett. And Gary Black is really close behind them now. It's the last corner. Craig goes wide. Is he going to get the cutback? I don't know if it's going to work, but the slipstream is there. He's right behind the BMW of Darren Parker. It could take it. It's going to be close, but it's Darren Parker who takes race 1 ahead of Craig. Gary takes 3rd, a fantastic podium for Gary. Mark Nicol takes 4th after leading the race for a fair distance. Tom is going to take 5th, just ahead of Kieran, so 5th and 6th for K-Tech. Rob takes 7th, Heathy takes 8th, Mike takes 9th, Joe takes 10th, Harry takes 11th, Connor takes 12th, and Tom Wright takes the back. Of course, Josh doesn't finish. Darren takes the first win here at Monza and the first race of the season, just ahead of Craig, who finishes just ahead of Gary. So a strong showing for Gary in the last podium position. Mark was 4th, Tom was 5th, Kieran 6th, 7th was Rob, Stephen was 8th, Mike 9th, Joe 10th, Harry 11th, Connor was 12th, Tom was 13th, and of course Josh doesn't finish after his technical issues and doesn't get off the grid. So what this means for the overall standings then, as expected, Darren is leading with actually 21 points. He gets the extra point for the pole position. Respectively, everyone else finishes in the same as they had in the race. Gary the only one to get the extra point for the fastest lap of that particular race. In the teams then, the interesting one here is Ellett Racing is leading by just 1 point ahead of DC Motorsports with 26. K-Tech are just 2 points behind them with 24. K&N Racing 23 in 4th, and HB Motorsports in 5th with 16. But of course, it's very early days. In the independents, Gary takes a good strong lead with 20 points. Connor is 2nd with 17. Tom is 15 points in 3rd. Of course, Josh and Chris haven't scored any points for the independents after race 1.